you want to. Paul, you sent this over to Craig, and both Craig and I. Kendry Miller, the running back, who really got a lot of time last year, hell of a player from a small little school, Mount Enterprise, a quote about the TCU practices under Sonny Dykes. Practice is completely different from what it used to be. Everybody was just kind of sluggish, like getting through, but now everybody is competing every day and ready to go to work.
Yeah, and the reason I sent this to you is this is why you fire the guy with the statue. If the things are sluggish and his message was getting stale, which was very clear was happening. Look, he can game plan with the best of them, but it's not just about that. It was the other stuff that was getting Gary Patterson in the weeds. That's why you make a change, and that's why his new role is probably better for him at his current point in this life, because he's kind of in the weeds when it comes to being the overall head coach and needs to just focus on game planning and consulting and doing that stuff. But it wasn't surprising to me to hear this, and that's why you make changes as a coach.
But isn't that also what you might hear anytime there's a change?
I was going to say, every time there's a change, like these coaches are the best. This strength coach is, working us hard, and maybe I would have fallen privy to things like that prior to this job, but now having seen like 3 head coaching searches and a scandal and, multiple other coaching changes in other sports, that's just kind of what guys are going to say. Like the big news would be if Kendry Miller said like, man, those practices under Patterson were really intense and now we're just kind of, that would have been alarming, but I think that's probably just some of the newness, quite frankly. But I also do think that playing into that newness, I do think that Gary Patterson had worn out his welcome. I think that program was flatlining, and unless you were playing Baylor, there wasn't really a whole lot of impact. I feel. I mean, they could beat Texas on a regular basis. They'd get up for that game, and they, regularly got to bowl games and whatnot, but really after Browse got fired, like that program just kind of went down a level, and it never really rose back to the level that it was prior. And I'm not sure why, because I know why Baylor went back down, because, well, they lost their head coach and basically had to blow up the whole building. TCU, nothing happened. Really, nothing happened. So I don't know why they went from contender to just basically being a team that could win a few games and give you some trouble and would get to a bowl and do all of that. But maybe that's because the message had kind of worn thin, and it wasn't, wasn't the way that it was supposed to be. And I definitely picked up on that. I think the last couple of years, I'm just kind of wondering, like, man, this whole Patterson TCU thing just kind of feels like it's running out of time.
And I think that part of it is that Gary Patterson is a coach from a bygone era, a little bit of head coach in that you can say anything you want. And I think Urban Meyer's now a coach from a bygone era.
What about Nick Saban?
Nick Saban is
adapts.
He adapts.
Yeah. There you go.
He adapts.
There
That's the thing. It's like there were times when I thought Nick Saban was about to fall into that when he's complaining about the spread offense. But Nick Saban was so brilliant. All he was telling you was that, like, look, you can make a rule about this, or I'm going to do it with my guys.
Kind of like NIL.
You're good. That's what he does. But Gary Patterson and Urban Meyer weren't adaptable because they got used to being able to be, this is what I say. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, I'm the head coach. It doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah, I agree. Armstrong, I sent you that video. Go ahead, Craig.
I'm very curious to see how they do, though. I mean, Sonny Dykes is a good coach, and it's going to be wildly different watching his version of TCU football versus the version. Because even when Patterson wasn't coaching last year, he was still coaching. Like, we know for sure the Baylor game, he was, like, game planning and doing that kind of stuff. So he wasn't all the way out like he is now. So I do think it'll look wildly different. It'll probably, have some new energy to it. But as far as, like, turning it into results, I don't know. I don't know what to expect just yet from TCU. Certainly don't expect them to have – the defense that's going to lock you down game in and game out like they did. I mean, they could still have a good defense, but I just don't expect it to remain on the level of when Gary Patterson was running it, right? But I think offensively they'll take a step up. Clearly with Sonny Dykes going to be a bit more up-tempo, and you're going to see a lot of probably gaudy stats. But then again, in the Big 12, with the defenses they have, I mean, that's like with Aranda talking about the influx of all the spread stuff. It's going to be a really different type of a year, I think, in terms of the changes and what that's created and kind of just the style of the league. So I'm fascinated to see it.
And I think, look, that 3-3-5 defense that people are running, or what Baylor runs, what West Virginia runs, is the one that counters the spread. So it's not the same. Iowa State, that's what they run. It runs to counter the spread, and they came up with that because everybody's running the spread and still running the same old defenses. So they had to adjust. And I think so you'll still see some gaudy offensive numbers in certain places, but I don't think that it's going to be the same as it was 10 years ago.
No, I'm saying that you are going to see, like that's what I'm saying is I think you're going to see an uptick in gaudy numbers. I mean, Zach Kittle at Texas Tech, if you watched Western Kentucky and Bailey Zappi and Jarrett Stearns and all those guys last year, I mean, that's going to be a lot of passing and a lot of receiving touchdowns and things like that. Obviously, Sonny Dykes and what he did at SMU, they're going to be up tempo. They're going to be fast and big stats and things like that. Jeff Lebby, same thing. I mean, it's going to be big stats, big athletic, receive. I mean, go down the line of all the changes. Sarkisian at Texas, now that he's got Ewers at quarterback and Bijan back and Worthy back. I don't think it's going to be the no defense league like it was maybe 10 years ago. I think it's going to be a great mixture of really high tempo offenses and then really stingy defenses, and where they fall in the middle and how that plays out. That's what I think is going to be really interesting to watch.
I just said, as Craig, you were and Paul talking, that Notre Dame has scheduled their first game ever against an HBCU opponent against Tennessee State, Eddie George, in September of 2023.
It's their first FCS opponent, I believe, as well.
Possibly as well.
That.
There's only one. UCLA has two scheduled, both against HBCUs. Mm-hmm. The only school as of 2023 that will have never played one and has no plans to currently is USC.
Yep.
An FCS
only
opponent.
one. Yep. Now that Notre Dame's done that, so Notre Dame kind of knocked out two birds with one stone there. So that'll be cool.
I think this was Marcus Freeman really pushing this.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
I think it was. Good. I think it was. It was a big thing to him. Yeah.
Armstrong, what did you give me the thumbs up for? You have